Hello everyone, and welcome to the September 2019 update of the Power BI desktop. As always, we have lots of exciting features for you this month, and we're going to start off with the reporting features. The first of which is some updates to our theme JSON file structure. If you've ever had to change the look and feel of your report, you've probably written out a JSON file to do that. And if you've had to make significant changes, you've probably seen that it can be quite time-consuming to make all of the various adjustments you need to change a bunch of properties from the formatting pane in the visual styles section of your JSON file. To make this easier, we've introduced the concept of color and text classes to our theme file in that top level section right near the data colors part of the theme file. And what these classes allow you to do is set, in case of color, a color, and in case of text, font family, size, and color. In just a few places, and it update many parts of your report that probably you want to look the same anyways. Let's take this theme file for example. Right under the data colors, you'll be able to see color classes that have already been set. And some of these you already know. Foreground, background, and table accent have already been supported, but we've now added support for several other color classes as well, and each of these can update many things in one setting. So just because I set foreground to 252423, I've actually set probably 10 different properties in the formatting pane all through that one color. And while I'm not going to cover it in this video, we have documented what each of these different text classes and color classes set, so you'll be able to reference both the blog and our theme documentation to be able to see the details for each of the classes, what they set. So for the color classes, you can see here, it's just another line item in the top section of your theme before you get into visual styles. And for text classes, you'll see here further down, we actually have 4 text classes that that are like the primary text classes you can set: callout, title, header, and label. And you can set for each of these, the font size, the font family, and the color. And you can see the structure here into how you need to lay that out. Now for text, there is, as I mentioned, the 4 primary classes you see here, but we also have some secondary text classes that I'm not showing in this specific theme file. And while you don't have to set the secondary text classes, you can if you want to in the theme file, and you can see through the blog and documentation what the primary versus the secondary classes can control. And if you don't set the secondary classes, they'll actually just automatically inherit some of their properties from these primary classes, which is why they're called the secondary classes. There's inheritance going on. And so let me take, for example, the title. So by setting the title property, you are setting, in this case, 12-point font, DIN, and 252423 color to the axis titles of your chart. And you're probably going to want the axis title and the title of your visual to be very similar by default. However, you want the title of the whole visual itself to be bigger. And so while the axis title is going to be 12-point, we actually are going to automatically apply the same title formatting, but with 14-point font, to the title of your visuals. And so for each of these classes, they could potentially have secondary classes that are derived from it. In some cases, a secondary class is just a little bit bigger or smaller than the primary. It could be lighter in color. It could be both smaller and lighter. It just kind of depends on what area of the visual is being formatted by that text class. And these rules are set up in terms of percentages. So if I later decide I want my axis titles to be 8-point font, the title of the visual is not going to still be 14. It's going to be the same difference in size percentage-wise compared to 12 and 14 are difference-wise. The reason we set up this inheritance in terms of the text classes is that we really just want you to be able to set just a few things and in your JSON file and have your report look pretty much the way you would expect it to. You're always going to probably want your title of your visual to be bigger than the title of your axis. You're always going to want, or most likely going to want, the totals of your table and matrix to be a bolded version of the labels within the table in the matrix itself. You know, there's some pretty standard formatting that we can expect to apply, and so that's why we set up the text classes in this manner. To go along with this update, as I mentioned earlier, you can reference our documentation, and we've made a decent amount of updates to our documentation to not only include these new features, but also make it a little more readable and easier to figure out how to write your JSON file. And we're going to continue to make some more improvements to the documentation in the coming month as well. Next on our list, we have some more theming updates. We actually have a whole new default theme that you're going to have for all of your new reports. We spent a lot of time doing both design and user research work to find a theme that meets industry best practices, is better looking, meets visual standards that you would expect. And we're very confident that this new default theme is much more attractive and usable compared to our previous theme. And to go along with that, we also have some new theme options in our theme dropdown as well. So what you're seeing here is actually the new default theme. So you can see all of the different colors available within this visual, and if I open up a color picker, you can see the whole set as well. In addition to the new colors, we also updated all of our text to be bigger and darker, which makes it more accessible and more readable, which is some feedback we've definitely heard was that in the old version, it was a lot harder to read your text. People are always bumping up the font size or darkening the color, so we wanted to improve that. We've also set some formatting changes by default as well. So for example, the expand collapse is on for the matrix by default. If you're using a pie or a donut chart, we've reconfigured the legend and labels to be a default setting that makes the pie chart more readable and usable for your end users. We've even turned the background on by default for visuals, which helps if you wanted to create space between your visuals and set, like, say, a light gray color to the background of your report page, then by having the visuals background on, you're being able to create good spacing and tiling effects for your report really quickly and easily. And like I said, we have updated our list of themes, so now we have a whole new set of them. We have things that just, some simple ones that just change the colors to some different options. We have some that set the background color and font family to different things. We even have a dark theme, which is our Innovate theme, so if you're really into dark reports, this might be a good option for you. Near the bottom of the list, you'll see I've set some set themes that are actually either sequential or divergent color palettes that move between two different colors. So if your data is less distinct categorical data and instead more of, would be better to be displayed with hues of the same or divergent colors, like, so if it's mostly focused on measures like maybe temperature or sales and you want to be able to show that well, one of these color palettes might be a good option. And we even have a couple of color palettes, like for example the Bloom color palette, that takes advantage of some of our other features, like being able to set the background image of your wallpaper to something. It is a little bit maybe more fun and whimsical in terms of theming. So we have a whole set of themes here, and if you did like the old themes, they are still available under the more theme options. You can pick them, and if you pick classic, that's actually the old default theme. So if you really want to keep using that theme, you can just by selecting classic. One more thing to note is that whenever you import a JSON file, it always builds off of the default theme. So if you say are importing a theme that just sets the colors, with the new default theme, when you import that, you're still going to have the settings like the background color, the layout for the pie chart, the expand collapse options. All of those settings are still going to be there because it's the color palette from your theme is applying on top of our default theme. If you don't want that, if you want to keep looking exactly like you had it before with the old default theme, if you select classic first and then import your theme file, that theme is going to be applied on top of the old previous classic theme. So it would look exactly like your older reports where the pie chart looked like this, visuals were transparent, etc., etc. So there's still a way to make your report look exactly like it did before with your theme file without having to change it. We also have 2 updates for a personalized visualization pane that we would like to share. The first of which is that you can now unpin visuals that are built into Power BI from the pane. So for example, if you really hate pie charts and donut charts, you can actually unpin them and they will get removed from your report, and for within this one specific report, they get moved down to this bottom section of things that are just temporary. And if you open up a new report after you've done that, you actually see that the donut chart is gone from the visualization pane. It goes straight from pie to tree map. And that's because I've unpinned it. If I ever want to get my default visuals back, I can just go and click this option that says Restore Default Visuals, and it will reset the whole pane to have all of the default visuals that you had previously unpinned. This is really nice because it will allow you to declutter your visualization pane with visuals that you might never use. So if you never use the Python or R visuals, feel free to unpin them, and then you never have to worry about accidentally clicking them or them taking up space. This is also useful if, say, you've built out your own custom line chart that does something special that our default doesn't. You'll probably want to keep just using that custom visual line chart and just completely unpin the built-in one that we have available so you don't have to remember which one is which. The other thing we've done is add an about dialog for all visuals, so you can right click on any of them and click about, and you'll get the name of the visual, the ID of it, what version it is, where did you get it from, so AppSource being the marketplace, and how would you get support for that visual. And we have that available for all of the different visuals in Power BI. And so this just helps you if you ever can't remember where you got a visual from, or what if you're on the latest version of that visual, you can now just right click and get an about dialog that gives you all of that information. Next up is the analytics section, and our first feature in this section is one that's been requested quite a bit. I think a lot of people are going to be excited to hear that we now support custom format strings. So if you go into the model view for your report and you select a field, let's say the sales amount field, you'll be able to pick from the formatting card. Under Format, you'll be able to pick, instead of just the standard ones, you'll also be able to pick Custom. And once you do that, a new section called Custom Format will show up, and you'll be able to pick either from this predefined list, or you'll be able to override that and paste in your own custom format string. And as you paste that in, you'll actually be able to see an example down here that will show you what it will look like. We'll be able to support most of the VBA style syntax in terms of custom format strings, so it's not a direct one-to-one mapping with what Excel supports, just so you are aware of that. We link to documentation on the VBA style syntax and the blog, so make sure to check there if you're curious, and we will be posting our own documentation on this as well. Next on our list is more visual formatting options that can be conditionally formatted. We've had a few of these almost every month, so you likely now are aware that we are on a mission to let you format basically everything in the formatting pane dynamically through conditional formatting. This month, there's a couple of new features that can be conditionally formatted, the first of which is alt text. So all objects on the canvas under the general card have an alt text option, which is used for accessibility. If someone is using a screen reader and they're tabbing between the visuals on your report page, the alt text is what gets automatically read off to them, and it's used so that they can understand what kind of insights they're supposed to be getting out of that visual, and also it lets them know if they should decide to explore the visual further and actually dig into the data itself. So it's very important in terms of accessibility. But up until now, it had to be static. Now you can write out some DAX measures and then choose the text measures from the conditional formatting dialog, and that will be read out by the screen reader instead. And so now you can actually start including values, like what's the max or the min value and category for any visuals within your page. And so it can become a lot more useful for your end users. You can also, for all visuals, now conditionally format the border. So if I turn the border on, I can choose to conditionally format this color by a measure instead. And so let's say that you might be using the background color dynamically right now to change color, but maybe that's too intense and you still want to show something around the visual, but not all of that color. So a border could be a really good option for that. And the gauge visual is now completely dynamic as well. So we had already released the gauge fill color being dynamically set, but now you can do things like the data label color can be conditionally formatted, the target value color can be conditionally formatted. Basically, the main text that you see here, you'll be able to conditionally format. And so just as a reminder, a good way to tell if a property can be conditionally formatted or not is to just hover over it. Anytime you hover over something and you see the 3 dots, you know that property can be conditionally formatted. The third item is an improvement that will make drill through a little bit more discoverable for your end users of your reports. So we've heard feedback that it can be quite difficult to know if a visual can be drilled through or not. You always have to right click on the visual, see if drill is enabled or not, and if it's not, you just have to keep clicking through until you find the visual that does have drill through, if any of them even do. And so a lot of users are having to add text to their reports to help indicate, hey, this visual right here, make sure to right click on it because you can drill through to it. So what we've done to make it more obvious to end users is let's just make this tooltip page a drill through page real quick just to demonstrate. Let's tie it to color. So now this is a drill through page tied to color, and if I go back over to my main report where it has color on it, you'll see when I hover over in the side the tooltip for this visual, since it's using color and therefore can drill through to that page, there is a little hint in the tooltip that says right click to drill through. And that will be shown on any visual that has drill through enabled on it. And again, that's just to make it really clear to your end users that, hey, right click on this, you can do an action on it. Lastly, we have some new DAX expressions this month. Remove filters and convert. The remove filters is basically the same as all when used inside calculate to remove filters, and the convert changes the expression to a different data type. Next up is visualizations, and under this is that the PowerApp visual is now generally available. The PowerApps Marketplace visual allows you to add the power of apps to reports and dashboards. It allows you to bring in forms and data editing directly into Power BI. We see a lot of people using it for things like being able to do data entry right in Power BI, do write back scenarios. I've even seen people use it to do things like allow people to add comments and annotations and then later funnel back into the report and say like a tooltip. So there's a lot of clever uses for the PowerApps visual. It's been in preview for quite a while, so we're very excited that the visual is now generally available, and it's certified, which means you can even use the visual in more places like printing. Under data connectivity, we have a PostgreSQL connector enhancements, the first of which is that it now supports folding over native database queries. So you're able to now paste a native query into the get data flow when connecting to a database, with folding capable operations applied on top according to the normal import or DirectQuery logic. Also, DirectQuery support is now generally available. We announced it as a preview last month, and so we're very excited to now, 1 month later, mark it as generally available. Under data preparation, we have added the ability to copy to clipboard from the data profiling sections of the query editor. So if I go and open the query editor, you'll recall we have these various distribution, column profile, column quality, all these various things that help you learn a little bit more about your column. And when you click on one, we even give you more statistics. Now you can actually take this data outside of the query editor as well. So when you hover over either these two sections, you can click on the little three dots here and get copy as an option. And you can copy from both of these sections and also down here from the column statistics and the column distribution. And depending on where you copy, you'll get different information that's related to the section. And then you can just paste it wherever you want, like say Excel. And so you can take that data, analyze it somewhere else, like in Excel, do whatever you want with it. And then lastly, we have a couple of performance improvements. First is some performance improvements for multi-dimensional model users. This month, we've done some work that gives users of Analysis Services 2019 multi-dimensional users general performance improvements. So this means that you're using the new release candidate of SQL Analysis Services 2019. There's a link to that in the blog. And if you are using that, you'll see more performant queries and optimization of measure execution. Some of you may know, if you've followed the product for quite a long time, of this improvement as Super DAX. And it really just reduces the chattiness between Power BI and Analysis Services. There are also some features that come along with this, such as multi-dimensional support for expand collapse on row headers, cross-highlighting support across multiple tables, and high-density sampling for your visuals as well, the visuals that support it at least. You will need to enable this setting in Analysis Services to take advantage of it in Power BI. And lastly, we also have query performance improvement for DirectQuery models. We've introduced runtime constant folding to improve query performance for some of the DirectQuery models out there, and the amount of performance, while it may vary depending on many factors like DAX expressions, model structure, speed of the DirectQuery source, etc., some of our early users have actually seen some quite significant performance gains on the DirectQuery models. So if you're using DirectQuery, you may be able to see much more performant reports going forward. That's it for this month. Be sure to try out all these new features and let us know what you think in the comments.